If you asked me what was the best way to start analyzing anime, I would say that you should look for a show's visual vocabulary. This is a term I first saw in a blog post by Bobduh, who analyzes and reviews anime on their site Wrong Every Time. In a write-up about Rock is a Lady's Modesty, they quickly begin to identify recurring motifs, such as flowers and reflections, that would later be used to visually emphasize the narrative beats of the show. Building a visual vocabulary gets you into the mindset of searching for patterns and then more deeply engaging with the story. 100 Scenes of AWAJIMA is a compilation of several smaller stories about characters across time who shared the experience of attending the AWAJIMA Opera School. Episode 3 is particularly challenging to understand because the audience follows 3 generations of women. The audience zigzags through time as they come to learn about the cycle of abuse and self-hatred that defines these 3 women and their relationships with one another. It's easy to get lost, but when you start anchoring yourself using a visual vocabulary, the story becomes so much clearer. The largest influence looming over these women is Natsuko Kusanagi, the eldest of the trio. Defined by her beauty, she adopts a harsh personality to beat the curse of the frail beauty, arming herself with a sharp tongue and the career-first mindset. This leads her to neglect her daughter, Ruriko Yamaji, and verbally abuse her granddaughter, Katsurako Ibuki. The weight of Natsuko Kusanagi hangs over these characters, even Natsuko herself, so it makes sense to visually hang that burden literally above them. After the title card, we cut straight to a picture of Natsuko as Katsurako recollects being called a failure by Natsuko. Within Natsuko's home office, 2 large portraits of herself overlook her conversations with Ruriko and Katsurako, visually representing her heavy influence. Despite Katsurako summoning up the courage to tell Natsuko to die, and the latter eventually passing, the portraits linger in both the office and Katsurako's mind. Upon realizing she has adopted Natsuko's cruel idiosyncrasies, Katsurako's face directly intersects with one of the portraits, drawing clear attention to how Katsurako had become the person she hated. The following shot punctuates the gravity that realization carries, with the S shape of a nearby lamp depicting that weight on Katsurako's shoulders with the portrait of Natsuko on the other side. A picture of Natsuko is also the starting frame for the introduction of Ruriko's POV. This time, it's a smaller picture frame, and the next shot shows a young Ruriko looking up to Natsuko. The following scenes establish Ruriko as someone a busy Natsuko would often neglect. In spite of this inattention, Ruriko is shown to unconditionally love her mother and is eager to obey. When she reaches high school, we again cut to a portrait of Natsuko before Natsuko herself commands Ruriko to attend AWAJIMA. With the second portrait of Natsuko behind her, Ruriko offers no resistance. But when she commits to marrying Yoshihiko Ibuki, the confrontation between the mother and daughter has evolved from their first one. The scene starts with a shot of not a portrait, but Natsuko's face herself. It demonstrates that this is Ruriko's first act of rebellion against the authority of her mother and her willingness to see past the ideal of Natsuko in their standoff. Though the shot structure is the same, the camera position varies compared to the earlier scene between Natsuko and Ruriko, supporting Ruriko's newfound independence. But there's not a single shot in this conversation with both the portraits and Ruriko. I'm the one getting married. The absence of a symbol can be just as effective as its presence. If the portrait of Natsuko is meant to represent the negative effect that Natsuko has on others, then shots of the sky must represent the ideal Natsuko stands for. Ruriko's feelings toward Natsuko are captured by her longing gazes upwards. When we first meet the young Ruriko, she is shown folding a paper crane, while her grandmother complains about Natsuko's negligence. As she hopes for a souvenir from Natsuko that never arrives, Ruriko lifts the crane to the sky. At the end of the episode, a much older Ruriko reflects on never receiving her mother's love and eventually growing to hate Natsuko. During this line, the camera pans down from the sky, before landing on the older Ruriko, her figure backlit, as if to show how Ruriko never escaped her mother's shadow. This scene was so profound to me, physically depicting that gap between the grounded Ruriko and the mother she dreamed of. The crane returns, briefly lifting into the sky, only to fall apart. Rough line drawings animate Ruriko's wishes for a better mother-daughter relationship, but they remain ephemeral sketches and never materialize. Ruriko is left longingly staring at the sky from the shadows of her nursing home, thinking about a future that never came to be. The sky encompasses both Natsuko as a mother and Natsuko as an actress. It's impacted Ruriko's relationship since enrolling at AWAJIMA because of how her classmates look up to Natsuko. When her friends speak about achieving a similar stardom, the sky is reflected in the windows behind them. When they speak about getting on Ruriko's good side to curry favor with Natsuko, a shocked Ruriko is backlit by the sky behind her, literally overshadowing Ruriko. When she doesn't quite know how to handle this kind of attention, a short-sighted shot of Ruriko with the clouds behind her tells you everything about who she is thinking about. For Ruriko, the blue sky is a constant reminder of her mother. However, there's one shot of the sky that differs from all the others. While Ruriko and Katsurako discuss the latter's love life, there is a quick cut to the sky with a small column of smoke passing through the middle. Here, Ruriko acknowledges that not to be in love is a choice in itself too. The smoke is heavily suggested to be from the crematorium after Natsuko's death, and it taints the normal depiction of the sky Ruriko had been looking up at. It directly references a callback from Natsuko's POV, where she acknowledges that she's only ever loved her husband and specifically not Ruriko. The gray smoke muddying the scenic sky is actually a bit of the real Natsuko slipping into Ruriko's beliefs, like she's come to understand her mother a little better now. The sky analogy for Ruriko's relationship to Natsuko showcases how unreachable Natsuko was to Ruriko, but one small addition to the composition reveals that the perceived distance between them can still change over time. Speaking of versatile symbols, AWAJIMA utilizes windows to deftly connect and separate characters. One of the most often repeated compositions in this episode involves placing one of the women on the left side of the composition by a window. Though these women have fought and said cruel things to one another, they are, in fact, more similar than they would like to admit. Bobduh specifically points out how visual vocabulary can be used to challenge or contrast the narrative action. The characters openly admit their resentment of one another, but the layouts reveal that those perceived disagreements and differences are facades. As everyone comes to realize later on in the episode, they truly are more alike than expected. Windows also act as natural frames within frames, creating division and separation of elements. The shots I pointed out earlier are not just good at connecting characters from across time, they are also relevant in describing the characters' relationships. In Katsurako's scene, the camera films her from outside a window as she reminds herself not to be too taken in by a student's kindness. After her cruel behavior towards her grandmother and a classmate, she feels she must atone for those sins. This shot from the window creates a frame that boxes her in, as if to physically remind her of her past. We see a similar instance with Ruriko, where she is shown separate from a group of girls gossiping about her. By revealing the nepotism that allowed her to attend AWAJIMA, Ruriko has created a definitive barrier between her and the other students that is manifested by the glass door separating the classroom from the balcony. Katsurako and Ruriko have their loneliness given form by the boxes the windows form around them. Natsuko's window scene deviates from this trend of isolation. Just as the rule of three in comedy can be used to elevate a joke, this third instance breaking the pattern increases the overall impact of the motif. Here, Natsuko is talking with her future husband about their lack of intriguing lives outside of acting. Natsuko has expressed boredom with suitors who believe she wants a reprieve from her acting career. But only Kanichi Yamaji is able to relate to her more introverted tendencies. So now, when we cut to the camera filming from outside the room through the window, Kanichi is placed on the same side as Natsuko. Instead of emphasizing solitude, the shot suggests their compatibility. Rather than following the herd, this third scene bucks the trend. And rather than showing Natsuko as the antagonist, as she has been for most of the episode, this window creates a moment of companionship that goes a long way in humanizing her. The windows across all three character POVs manage to both connect the leads and highlight their independent struggles to great success. Symbolism is fantastic, but visual vocabulary isn't limited to diegetic objects. The arrangement of these objects and characters, specifically the show's usage of layering, can also visualize the rifts between the cast. The first thing you see in the episode is this landscape with the dark mountain in the foreground. After doing some digging, I believe this is actually a reference to Japanese artist Hiroshige. In fact, his collection of landscape prints is known as 100 Famous Views of Edo. Sound familiar? In these paintings, Hiroshige often adds foreground elements that cover some amount of the midground and extend beyond the frame of the painting. Columbia University professor of Japanese art, Henry Smith, talks about the effect Hiroshige's compositions have on the viewer's experience. One of the most pivotal is how this near-far composition creates a huge sense of contrast. AWAJIMA's layering is not meant to create a seamless composition, but a disjointed one. During conversations between characters, AWAJIMA will often place a character almost too close to the screen. So much so that sometimes the tops of heads are cut off and faces extend outside the frame. The colors are also dramatically different, with the close-up character being significantly darker. If the lighting and sizing don't look comparable, how can the audience trust that they are in the same place? Well, that's the point. This motif visualizes the emotional distance between characters. They're so disconnected from one another that it's like they exist in two distinct planes. Whether it's Natsuko berating Katsurako about her attitude, or Ruriko's grandmother criticizing Natsuko's parenting, there's an interplanar gap between characters so large that no middle ground can be established. There's a conversation between Natsuko and her mother that is laid out in this manner, and, mid-admonishment, Natsuko begins immediately discussing her lack of love for her daughter. That sense of uninterest and lack of respect is emphatically made clear in the blocking. The difference in brightness can be expanded to color as well. There are two conversations with Natsuko as she lays in her bed with Ruriko and Ruriko's husband, Yoshihiko. Those conversations establish Natsuko and her conversation partner as strangers, again emphasizing the lack of agreement and familiarity. To let the viewers observe this estrangement, complementary colors are used. The lighting through the window curtains basks Natsuko in a warm orange glow, while the person she talks to is colored a dark blue in the shadows. Ruriko in her scene is even wearing a bluish top to further distinguish her visually from the rest of the room. That huge contrast in colors creates disharmony in the composition and thus reveals conflict between the characters. Separating characters into discrete layers really plays into the episode's theme of exploring this family's conflicts. The other effect of Hiroshike's compositions is that by implying the existence of an object outside the captured frame, Hiroshige makes clear that this painting is simply a slice of life in Edo. Just as Hiroshike's painting suggests a world continuing beyond the frame, Awajima utilizes these layouts to emphasize that we are merely glimpsing passing moments in its large cast's lives. The episode ends with the return to that exact same starting frame, as if to tell the viewers that this quick look into the lives of Natsuko, Ruriko, and Katsurako has ended. The world of Awajima goes on. Each of these things are individually great examples of mindful cinematography. Because the episode abandons time as a framing action and incorporates numerous characters, these familiar visuals reward the audience for engaging with the episode despite the fractured timeline. Alone, windows, portrait, the sky, and layers all have important functions in the show, but an additional level of interpretation can be achieved by repeating these visuals throughout a season or even one episode.